Hey, what's up everyone, Ragey Golden Eagle here, having way too much fun as always. Today especially because we have yet another classic example of get woke, go broke. This time courtesy of EA. And though I'm not going to be going through the articles line by line this time, all the links I use are going to be in the description box below, so you can check them out yourselves. But anyway, you guys remember a man by the name of Patrick Sutherland? Well, you should, because he's the guy that said if you don't like women in the allegedly historically accurate Battlefield 5, then you are uneducated and should just not buy the game. Well, a few days ago, it was announced that he was leaving EA. Why would he do this after nearly 2 decades with the company? And being a C-level executive too, he's gotta be pretty damn entrenched in there. As it turns out, the fans actually listened to his earlier advice and have decided not to buy the game. The day after his departure was announced, it was leaked that Battlefield 5 pre-orders have been weak, both compared to other games in the series and compared to the strong showings for the new Call of Duty and Red Dead Redemption. And what do you know, his overlords at EA were not pleased with this result. Oh sure, they're all in favor of virtue signaling, but only if it lines their pockets with more money. And with the results he's achieved so far, is it any surprise that he's leaving the company? Oh, but he left voluntarily, he didn't get fired, I can hear some of you say now. And if you honestly believe that, then you don't know how C-level executives get fired. It's completely different than grunts like us who are fired normally the way you imagine being fired goes. If we are exceptionally lucky, we are given a 2-week notice. Otherwise, we're pretty much just told to pack up our shit and get the fuck out the moment we get the news. The only time a C-level executive gets unceremoniously fired like this is if they publicly screw up to the point that the customers are calling for blood. And if that doesn't happen, as is the case here mind you, he may have pissed a lot of people off and convinced them not to buy the game, but from what I've seen, nobody has been campaigning to get him fired. So yeah, in the absence of a massive outrage like that, they are simply made an offer they can't refuse behind closed doors. And publicly we see this as early retirement, leaving for greener pastures, or any of the other number of excuses that are used. But believe me, they are not leaving voluntarily. And as hilarious as this story of a man getting exactly what he asked for is, there is actually another important lesson here. One that I've been harping on for years and have constantly been proven right. But nobody's listening, so I'm sorry, I have to go all broken record. This time, that lesson is the fact that games journalists have absolutely no power or influence over customers in current year. And if you actually think about it, is it really a surprise? They don't give a shit about reporting the news cause there's no money in the news. All they do now is pump out clickbait drama shit. And that is why people visit them, for the drama. Nobody with a functioning brain goes to sites like Polygon to get video game news and recommendations. And this is proven by the fact that pretty much every time they shill a game, it flops. And every time they shit on a game, it makes mad money in no small part due to their free advertising. Who the hell would have even known or cared about hatred if the media wouldn't have pitched a fit about it, for instance? Hell, it's almost like if someone can find actual gameplay online, or even better, a let's play of the game, it doesn't matter if you tell them the game is good or bad, they can just see for themselves and make their own decision. So given that this is the reality of the market, all that really matters in the end is exposure. If you try to shill a shitty game, no matter how positively you speak about it, if people can see it's shit, your shilling likely won't get the game more than double-digit sales more than they otherwise would have gotten without your help. On the other hand, if you try to tear down a good game, people can still see it's a good game regardless of your opinion, and all you are doing is just exposing it to more people who otherwise would not have known about it, but now are curious and looking up more info on it from other sources by themselves. Which, if you're smart, actually opens up a lot of opportunities in what I call outrage marketing. Making the gaming media about your game, your company, or even you yourself on purpose to use them as free advertising. Kind of like Bethesda is doing right now with Doom Eternal, whether intentionally or not. So knowing this, it's kind of obvious that game journalists have no power or influence over the opinions of consumers, and really all they're good for is giving you exposure as free marketing. But the tragedy here is they do still have a lot of power and influence over the developers and publishers themselves. And this has always bugged me. I've always wondered why developers keep trying to appease the gaming media even though they are proven ineffective time and time again. Even though what the gaming media demands is almost always at odds with what the customers actually want. But the answer has been right in front of my face all along, or at least for the past 6 years or so. I just didn't notice it until a much smarter individual pointed it out to me, and in a YouTube comment section at that. You guys remember the story of how Bethesda got out of paying Obsidian the bonus they deserved for the excellent Fallout New Vegas? The wording of their contract specified they'd get the bonus if the game got a Metacritic score of 85. And since they only got a score of 84, they got nothing. I guess they should have reworked that contract into some sort of ramp-up or something, but, well, they didn't think about it. Or they tried, but Bethesda had none of it, I don't know, but either way, big mistake. So anyway, being reminded of that situation, it all makes sense now. The reason these developers care so much about smoking that game journalist sausage is because I highly doubt this deal Obsidian and Bethesda had was an isolated case. If you were a developer trying to put food on the table and your pay was tied to critic score and not to actual units sold, I wouldn't fault you for making what is basically the Oscar bait equivalent of a video game. Now, while I fully believe this is a self-correcting problem, because let's face it, you can have all the perfect 100 Metacritic games you want, you'll still be out of business real quick if they don't actually sell. I have this to say for those of you who would rather not go down with the ship. I highly suggest paying out bonuses and/or royalties based on units sold as opposed to worthless subjective review scores that quite often don't line up with sales. Now, as for how you'd calculate this is probably something we can debate for hours, but a few simple ideas off the top of my head are, for example, a flat percentage of every unit sold regardless of how many sell, or you just give a bigger bonus if you outsell your last game in the series, or perhaps you base the bonus on how well your game did compared to the competitors who launched at around the same time, or more likely a combination of all of the above plus a whole bunch more factors. Even the 3 I just listed off the top of my head, there's pros and cons we can argue about in all of those methods, but I think we can all agree that every one of those is way better than basing bonuses on a worthless score given by a conglomeration of worthless activists pretending to be journalists. So for all of you developers and publishers out there who wish to avoid going broke, please take this lesson to heart. Unlike 20-ish years ago, games journalists don't have a monopoly on information regarding gaming anymore. In fact, their bullshit is being routinely exposed and they are a laughingstock among actual gamers. There is literally no need to appeal to them anymore, especially since a YouTuber like PewDiePie can move more units with a recommendation than pretty much all of the gaming media combined. Times are different now, and you need to adjust your archaic bonus and marketing strategies to match if you want to stay relevant. Just because you've always done something a certain way doesn't mean it's not incredibly stupid. And that's all I gotta say, guys. Thanks for listening.